Thank you for being here. First of all, this talk is meant to be in English. Does anyone have a problem with that? Should we switch to Spanish or English is okay? Okay. So, as I said, thank you all for being here today. We are going to talk about how to build your static site with Python. We are going to cover the basics, all the basics, how to do it with 3 libraries in like 3-4 lines, and then start building your own site, right? So first, a small disclaimer. The opinions in this talk are my own and not of my employer. We'll see later why, but there is a good reason for that. And then any code or information here, please use it at your own risk. There is no guarantee with this talk of what comes here. But I've tried it. I've tried the code. I've tried the site. So the good reason I was mentioned about the opinions being displayed are my own is because I'm not actually a web developer, a professional web developer. I work as a data scientist in a big company, but I really enjoy and I'm really passionate about Python, about all the new technologies that go out there. So that's the main reason for this talk. I'm not a professional web developer, so I needed something very simple to start with. To start with developing a website, deploying it, and making it available to the whole world. So for a static website, this is the why, these are the reasons. But do you all know what a static site is? No? Static site is just HTML code, HTML files. So for that reason, this is a very simple way to develop or to deploy a first web page. This is usually not very professional. A colleague before mentioned a whole bunch of reasons of using other professional tools that are meant for more complex cases, for different professional use cases. But what happens if you are an engineer alone at home trying to deploy a website? It usually happens that you don't have lots of resources, you don't have lots of servers and all that, and you don't have a lot of time to maintain, to secure, to do all those kind of things. So these are the main reasons for a static site. First one was maintenance. I had a website before. And I had it with a CMS, non-Python based, so it's out of the scope now. But the main problem was the maintenance. The maintenance was okay. We need to like build a new page, or you have a blog and you want to post something. You want the builds, and then you have to upgrade your system. If you have to upgrade your system, and if you are doing it in your spare time or something like that, it is usually a problem because you don't have the time. You have to know specifically what to upgrade, and there may be problems in a production environment and what else. So for this, the maintenance, it's based in Python, it's based in Markdown. So if you know Markdown, it's a very simple language. We'll go with Markdown later. You got incremental builds. So actually you build a page, you deploy the page to the server, it's okay, and continuous deployment, continuous integration. Then the security was one of the main parts because in just plain HTML, if you don't interact with the user in any way, what you're doing is, okay, you don't have elements of security breaches there. You display a content, you don't interact. You can interact with the user for a dynamic part, but these libraries rely on external dependencies. So you want to integrate comments with Facebook or with Disqus, you can do it. But you rely on the security from Facebook, from Disqus, which is actually, in my case, it was actually better than the security I could provide for the page. So this is the obsolescence was the other main reason. We talked about that earlier, because you don't have to run to deploy a platform update that came out last night, and you have 24 hours to deploy it. And then technology changes are much smoother this way because HTML is quite simple. And then the control, you are in control of everything in your page. In your page, you control the cost, you control the performance, you control which technologies you are placing there. So it's actually the control about what's in there and what can be done. It's very modest, but in principle it's very modest, but you can control it. So why Python? Why Markdown? There are other platforms for other languages, but why did I choose Python and Markdown? Well, actually this is a Python conference, so Python is a very or could seem a very obvious election here, but it's actually because we love the language. We are here because we love the language. It's easy to use and maintain. We could create some extensions, we could create plugins, we could create everything in Python for those libraries. And then we have the same philosophy here of these libraries. So for Markdown, it's easy, it's simple, it's portable. It's just like opening a text editor and start writing. And for me, it was very comfortable to write in Markdown or reStructuredText, which is the other option most of the cases. So it's quite flexible for your needs. So if you don't need very complicated things, it's actually a great option. So how do we do this? Which are the libraries? Okay, for Python, we'll be using MKDocs. I'm sure some of you at least know this library. This is used for when you have a project and you have the documentation of the project. Okay, you want to visualize it as a web page. Okay, so for that, maybe MKDocs is the best option. It's quite simple. It renders all the documentation you may have in Markdown, and it renders plain, simple. You have it all available. Nicola and Pelican are very similar. Nicola and Pelican are similar in the way that they could be used for blogs, they could be used for static sites, they could be used for many different types of websites. But in these two cases, you have extensions, you have a very customizable way of doing your static site. It's not just place your documentation and render a website. So MKDocs, okay, it says there that it's fast, simple, downright. So this is the description from the homepage of MKDocs. But if you want to document a project, it's an excellent choice because you have the Markdown, you render, deploy, and everyone has the documentation. They can search through the documentation of your module, of your library, whatever. It's easy to use, easy to deploy, because you can move the actual folder. It makes a new folder and places all the HTML files there. So you can move the folder to a server, and you have it deployed. You can upload it. You can customize the appearance. There are some themes available, but it's actually a matter of customizing the view. And then you have live previews. You don't have to deploy the first time. You can do the live previews and then deploy, and it's a good way of doing it. How do we create our site in MKDocs? So we are in the terminal and we say, okay, make a new page, MKDocs, please make a new page and call it PyCon MKDocs. And he says, okay, creating the project directory, creating the config file, because it's in YAML language. Also a very simple language for config files. And then write an index. So this is the first step. You place your own files in the docs folder that created. As I said, it creates the site folder, docs folder, and a sample file. You can put your own files there in Markdown, and then, okay, create the output. MKDocs, please serve me the page. And what does MKDocs do? Create the page. We have the page there. So actually, we can, this is quite simple, but in order to search a documentation or provide a very simple way to do this, it has actually links to different parts of the documentation, inline links to other documentation pages. You have a search capability. So this is quite simple and quite powerful. So the next one would be a Nicola. Nicola is a bit more powerful. It has support for more professional capabilities, such as automation, such as themes. You can import their extensions. You can create an extension. You can create a theme. You can customize nearly everything inside Nicola. You have internationalization support in terms of, okay, I have my page in English, and I can also have the same posts or the same pages in another language, Spanish, French, whatever. And then you have support not only for blogs, but for static pages and for static websites, different from blogs. Blog is a very straightforward way to deploy a Nicola static site, but they also have the capability of customizing your own static page. And this serves as a replacement for customer CMS, a content management system. So if you want to replace a professional CMS or another complex CMS for this, the main thing is that you simplify all the process. This also comes to another cost, we'll see later, but you have this simplify. So how to create the site? It's almost the same. So you can init with Nicola a new static site. With the demo option, it creates all the folders and a sample blog post and what have not, and you specify the name of the folder. So it starts to ask, okay, what's the site title? What's your name as an admin of the page, or who is writing the blog. In this case, what's your email, what's the language, do you want comments or not, which kind of comments, the available comment systems by default are Discuss, Facebook, Google+, Intense Debate, ISO, Live Fire, and Mute. So you can also embed a comment system in your blog, and then you have to configure the time zone in order to make the deployments and all that. So it's a bit more complicated than MKDocs. MKDocs didn't ask anything, but in this case, the questions are yes or no questions. So it's a bit more complicated, but you only have to answer yes, no, my name is, whatever. So to create the site, the next thing is, okay, you have a post folder, you place there your files in reStructuredText, Markdown format. If you want to have also static pages other than the posts, you also have the pages folder, so you place the files there. Every file is a page or a post or a blog post. And then, well, you have an images folder to place your media content and all that. And then you create the HTML output. How? Nicola build. Nicola build, this command only does one thing. It sees the already created HTML output, so it can automatically rebuild only the parts that have been changed. In that way, your deployments are gradual and are only meant to fix the parts or create the parts that haven't been created before. And then Nicola Serve. Nicola Serve is just the local way to deploy the page. In this case, you can visualize it in your browser. We are going to do this, but this is a local way. It also has integration with other sites for deployment, for automatic deployment. So the preview is could be like this. You can also change the theme and everything else. So this is a bit, well, actually it's a bit different in the sense that you can do many things, but the visual aspect of the pages are very similar. And then for Pelican, the best thing is probably the definition of why Pelican is developed, which is, okay, I was tired of writing in WordPage, in WordPress and all that, and I just wanted to write Markdown. I just wanted to focus on my content. So it's also customizable, extensible. There are many themes available in GitHub. There is a repository for that. There is another repository for plugins, Pelican themes, Pelican plugins. It also has internationalization support. And then this library focuses on blogs, but you can also render static sites. But the main focus is for blogs here. It has integration with WordPress. If you have your site in WordPress, it comes from a built-in import tool where you can import your whole WordPress site independently of 10, 100, 1,000 pages. It imports all the WordPress site, and you can have your site exactly like you had in WordPress, but with Pelican, more secure and more easier to maintain. It also has integration with social networks and comments and that. So how to create the site? It's actually more or less the same thing. Pelican Quick Start. You can also create a site in a more difficult way, but the questions are more or less similar. What's your name? What's the site? Well, the URL. What's the language, the time zone? Do you want to use SSH to deploy, FTP to GitHub pages? So it comes with some questions about deployment to facilitate that. So after answering all the questions in the first place, basically it's the same thing. You place your files, restructure or Markdown in content folder. You place the static folders, the static pages in content pages folder, and you can create the output. You can create the output saying, okay, Pelican content, and it creates a new folder called output. You render it with a server that it comes built in Pelican, and you have your page. This is a Bootstrap-based theme, but this is your page. It comes with the blog, static pages in the upper part, some links, and what else? So how can I deploy my site? In MKDocs, you move the folder, whatever you want. In Nicola, you have support for automatic deployment, support for GitHub, integration with Travis CI, which is a library for doing continuous integration. In Pelican, you have support for we saw before, FTP, SSH, Dropbox, S3, Rackspace, GitHub. So you have lots of options to deploy the page automatically. So what can we do? Write the Markdown. This is the Markdown file for MKDocs. We only wrote this in a text editor. We render the page. So we can focus on the content, iterate, maintain, because maintain a text file, a plain text file, is quite simple, and it's simple and secure. Because if someone wants to inject the code with HTML, okay, it can be done, but you can render your original page, move it to the server, and you can redeploy your page easily. So you can customize, as we said, okay? For MKDocs, it's simple. You forget about everything else other than I want to create a site, and this is the content. And you create and iterate very quickly. You create, you visualize, you deploy, you then go back to creation, visualizing. So these iterations are quite quick. For Nicola and Pelican, themes available, extensions, incremental builds, support for continuous integration, whatever. And then you have support for other things. You don't have to stop at static. You can rely on external providers to render dynamic content. For example, in Nicola, which is mainly, it has integrated support for many things. It has integrated support for YouTube videos, for Vimeo, for SoundCloud, for audios, for GIST, for codes, for charts, whatever. And then for Pelican, you have integrated support for comments. So that's it for this, but this is the place where the slides will be. But I wanted to show not only this, but the page. So with, I don't know if I can, okay. So this is like a blog post. With Nicola, we built a new site with the Nicola init and the page, and we just wrote the title, all the Slack, the date, the tags for the blog post, who's the author, the description, the category, in a very simple way to create it, and then the text. So this is restructured. This is not Markdown, but what I wanted to show is that it's very simple to create things like, okay, I want to create the text and place an image, and concatenate these elements. So with Nicola Bill and Nicola serve, let me see if I can. Okay. We have a web page with a very simple text file, with 3 commands, with Python, with tools that we know. We can create a simple website. So actually, I hope you like this way of creating websites, because it's very powerful. For some environments, it's something that it can be taken into consideration. Thank you.